My name is Wayne Clark. I'm president of the Methodist Foundation for Arkansas. We are delighted as we continue our In Conversation Together program. We started those in October. We've had some exceptional speakers, including the one that I'm about to announce.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna make you sound good, but
Okay.
for those of you who might be new to the Methodist Foundation, we are one of the largest Methodist foundations in the country. We're managing over $235 million for Methodist churches. I know, close the mouth, Craig, it's all for Methodists.
Man.
And Methodist ministries, and we've been around since 1963. So our speaker today, or our entertainer, our host, or whatever we want to call this next hour, is probably not a stranger to many of you. He's been in radio and television for, as he says, almost 52 years to be exact. I'm not sure those words go together. Award-winning, lots of awards, but his most award-winning is his wife, who he's been married to. You can see her work behind you. And next month, in fact, less than a month, they will be celebrating their 50th wedding anniversary. So we want to wish them well on.
Whoa, wait.
Yes,
sir. You got to pause for applause. That's an applause line.
Oh, okay.
When you say there you go.
There we go. Applause. So
it's very similar. Excuse me. It's very similar to the applause you get when you run the Little Rock Marathon. It's the same type of applause. They made it.
That's right. That's right.
Well, I can't believe they made it.
That's right. That's what people were saying 51 years ago, right?
Exactly.
So Craig's got 2 children, but he also has 2 grandchildren, one of which is at Central that he loves to embarrass, singing the anthem too loud. And the other one's at Pulaski Heights Middle School. So he has played at the White House. He's played, entertained in Hollywood.
Yep.
He's been on ESPN.
Yep.
ESPN Outdoors. But the one for me as a fundraiser foundation president, I'm super impressed that he's emceed over 9,000 events and helped raise between 40 and 50 million dollars.
Yeah, but that's not Methodist money.
Well, that's why, Craig,
I ain't even close to Methodist money.
Well, I want to talk to you about a job that we've got that we'd like to open up and see if you might come work for us for a little money. So in your spare time. But
keep in mind, most of those events, Wayne, were one time only.
Oh,
they didn't ask me back.
Okay. All right. Well, if you can raise just half of that for the Methodist, we would put you on a payroll.
Deal. Don't tell my church.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, listen, all right, let's get into the questions I've got. First one, you were born in Arkansas, raised in Arkansas. Tell us about Arkansas, growing up, your love for Arkansas.
Oh, man.
Some great childhood stories that were appropriate for this venue.
Well, most of them are appropriate for this venue because I've led a pretty conservative lifestyle, even though I don't talk that way. But I was born in the old St. Vincent Hospital. Now, anybody that's a baby boomer right now is going, oh, yeah, that is near what is now Arkansas Children's Hospital, that huge complex and campus. And it's also near the Emmanuel Baptist Church gym, or what used to be the Emmanuel Baptist Church gym is now the meeting room where they put the miracle ball and all that other stuff for Arkansas Children's Hospital. But that's where the old St. Vincent Hospital was. And that's where I was born. 12 pounds, 6 ounces.
No.
My mother was 3 weeks late, which could explain why I've been late for most events. I've always been late. But yeah, and grew up in first 6 years of my life were in Warren, Arkansas, the pink tomato capital of the world. My father was from there, and he moved us down there, built a house, but we moved away because he couldn't pay for it. So, so we moved to a bigger house that he still couldn't pay for on Ridgeway in the Hillcrest area. And on the fall of that, the Central High School crisis was going on about 10 minutes away from us, I was entering the second grade at Pulaski Heights Elementary. And that was my crisis. Forget that other crisis. I was going through one of my own.
That's right.
And
That's right.
but grew and spent my childhood on mostly on Ridgeway. We moved to Helena for a couple of years, and I got to see Kenny Hatfield play high school football.
Wow.
Now, how about that?
That's really,
And he would later become, of course, the coach. And here's an interesting story, Razorback fans. At Helena, when I went there in 1960 in the 5th grade, during the noon hour, the boys would play on this little field by the school. And here was the game. The game was one boy would be in the middle. All the other boys, dozens of us, would be on one side, and he would start counting to 10. When he hit 10, we had to run to the other side 30 yards away. If he tackled you, you were in the middle with him. And you can see how this game would go during the lunch hour. You'd be sweaty and dirty. The game was called Kashipi. I don't know where it came from, but here's why I remember it. That game had been going on for well over 30 years, since before World War II. And one of the stars of that game was a young boy named Kenny Hatfield. No one could tackle him. He was so elusive. Fast forward 4 years later to 1964. What's he doing? Returning an 80-yard kickoff against Texas that would eventually catapult Arkansas to the national championship that year. I give all the credit to Kashipi and Helena Elementary School. How about that?
That's a good one.
So I'm joined at the lunch hour game to Kenny Hatfield. But anyway, had a couple of years in Helena. My father started a water ski business that went under, so we had to move away again. I'm really painting a bad portrait of my late father, but he ain't around no more. So, and then moved back to Little Rock, and I went to Pulaski Heights Junior High, Little Rock Central. But when I was a kid, I loved the Razorbacks, as you can obviously tell. And my father took me to my first game in 1958. And it wasn't until years later I realized my first Razorback game was Frank Broyles' first Razorback game.
Okay.
I watched Arkansas lose to Baylor. Or as the late Frank Broyles would say, Baylor are a fine football team.
Yeah.
And so I was so eat up with being a Razorback. I also went to see Arkansas play Texas the following year in War Memorial Stadium, and Texas beat us 13-12. And I sat in the north end zone with my father, which had just been built. And Texas beat us by 1 point. And Wayne, I started crying. And I would not stop crying until my father took me down on the field to meet the players, because back then, that's what you could do. You could go down on the field, meet the players as they're coming off the field. And I wanted to meet Jim Moody, All-American, number 24 from El Dorado. And I was crying, I was bawling. And when I cried, the world knew about it. So I'm on the field with my father, and here comes Jim Moody. He's hobbled because he hurt his ankle in that game. And he sees me. He puts his hand on my head, pats me on the head. And I was okay.
Then there you are.
Crying was over.
You were there.
And fast forward to 2003, my daughter married a young man from McKinney, Texas, a lifelong Texas Longhorn fan. And as they're coming down the aisle, tears are coming down my cheeks. And all I can think of is, wonder where Jim Moody is right now.
You needed that pat on that head that as that daughter was marrying the Longhorn. So
I couldn't believe it. And I have 2 grandchildren, like you mentioned, and the oldest one plays both sides. She goes, "Woo, pig, hook 'em."
Oh, that's great.
Brilliant.
That's great. So with your love of the Razorbacks, and nothing against your college alma mater, how did you end up at ASU instead of going to U of A?
I go to the senior year. my senior year in high school. I go to ASU. I'm very impressed, and they have a radio TV journalism day, and I win the radio announcing contest, and you get a little trophy. I don't know where that is to this day, but I was impressed with the facilities, and I wanted to go into radio TV, and I didn't have a lot of money, so I couldn't be going away to Harvard like I'm going to get in Harvard, and they don't even have a radio TV department. But anyway, so I said, "Ooh, this looks nice." So I went to ASU, but I was still a Razorback fan. I'd sit in the stands and listen to the Razorbacks or check on the score if anybody happened to be listening. And they were my first love. And I'm a graduate at ASU, and I'm just tickled to death that ASU is going to play the University of Arkansas.
I know. Isn't that going to be great?
Oh, that is fantastic. Now, they played in basketball back in the NIT back in the late 80s when Nola Richardson was first there. Right. And ASU jumped out to a huge halftime lead. And I was pulling for ASU, sort of, just because U of A was so well known. But then they jumped back to a huge lead on Nolan, who I love. And in the second half, I'm pulling for the Razorbacks, and you would have thought ASU was Texas.
So
don't tell nobody.
We won't. And yeah, we won't. It's our secret. So
life would have been a lot simpler, Wayne, if I'd gone to Hendrix.
That's exactly right. So now,
by the way, if you check the records, the Arkansas, the Razorbacks used to play Arkansas teams,
yes,
and the Arkansas team they played more than any.
Yep.
Was Hendrix.
That's exactly right. And Hendrix beat them a few times.
And they did. And their grade point was better.
Yeah, that's right. So is it going to be a surprise who you're going to be pulling for between ASU and the Razorbacks?
I'm going to be Switzerland. I'll be totally neutral. Although I confess, I'm hoping Sam Pittman's still there. Surely he will be. I have fallen in love with Sam Pittman.
Yeah.
He's just the salt of the earth. I'm going to share something with you. It's going to sound like a promo. It's not a promo. My boss came to me just several weeks ago and said, "Do you think you could get an interview with Sam Pittman and you don't talk about football, you just talk about life?"
Yeah.
Well, it's been 13 years since I've done sports, so I didn't have any more connections up at Fayetteville, but I told my boss, "I'll try." Well, 3 days later, Jay Rogers is walking up here in the Heights, and Jay says to me, "Hey, you going to be there Thursday night?" And I said, "What's Thursday night?" And he said, "Sam Pittman's coming to town for the Boys and Girls Club Citizen of the Year banquet fundraiser." There was my chance. And here's what I did, y'all. I got 6 kids from the Whetstone Boys and Girls Club out in Southwest Little Rock. You can't find a more blue collar area of town than Whetstone and that Boys and Girls Club. And those 6 kids in a press conference type formation interviewed Coach Pittman. We have yet to play that on the air, but what you're going to see is Sam Pittman leaning forward, smiling, cannot wait to hear what these kids come up with, paying close attention to what they say. And 3 times, Wayne, he says to these children who are from an area that is economically challenged, he says to those children, "Great question."
Wow. Wow.
And I just knew that was going to be the case. I intuited that this is a man of the people. And I loved him before. I really love him now. I can't wait for y'all to see it. It's next Monday night, 10 o'clock on THV 11.
No plug there at all.
Oh, none at all.
No, sir. No, sir. Well, all right. I got a lot of topics to cover, but one real fun one you're often noted for are your wonderful pranks you did.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. How did you get started with those?
Because my ratings were suffering.
There are some. What are some of your ones that are just so memorable for you?
Well, of course, the most famous is LaShonda Reed, which now I feel like is racist.
I re-listened to that this week, by the way, and just
it's hilarious, but I fear we're portraying the angry Black woman, which is not what was my intent. But can you still hear me? I'm getting a spam call.
Oh,
here. This is
Yeah,
so
we can hear you.
stupid.
Keep going.
Okay, good.
Keep going.
But I guess the one, there's so many that uh, there are so many that stand out, but the one that makes me laugh to this day is the one where I call the highway sign company. They make highway signs for
Yeah.
the state highway department. It's an
Right.
actual little factory that makes these green signs for the highway department. And I ordered a sign for Eureka Springs up on Beaver Lake. There's a dam that doubles as a bridge. And during the summer months, the sun is beaming down on it. Kids are taking their shoes and socks off, walking across, and they're burning the bottoms of their feet. And we need a sign to tell them not to do it. And the guy at the sign company was so accommodating. He goes, well, sure, we can make any sign you want, what you want it to say. And I said, hot damn. And then he goes, hot damn, when do you want it?
So he wasn't gonna play
I'm
along
sorry.
with it.
I'm sorry, it was like a script. It was like he was scripted.
Oh, oh me.
But there were so many, and I got addicted to making them. I mean, when I felt like there was a sag and people weren't talking about the show, let's call Texas A&M and attempt to buy the band.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, with the football, that's one of the more memorable one as well.
Yeah. And a lot of them you'll know were football themed. Now, here's one no one heard. I called Frank Broyles after he appeared in the movie The Blue and the Gray. He played Lincoln's doctor.
Yes.
Can you imagine Abraham Lincoln in real life coming to and in a Georgia dialect says, how you feeling right now? He'd go, we lost the war. Boom.
Yeah.
So that was bad casting. But anyway, he looked the part.
Yeah.
But I called him as a Hollywood producer wanting to put him in a movie with Lily Tomlin, and he would play the ghost of a Confederate general, and Lily Tomlin would be his romantic love interest. And he bit. He was going for it. At the end of it, I said, do you have an agent, sir? And he says, no, but I can get one. And then when I told him it was me, he goes, well, that was a lot of fun. Can I use it on the air, sir? No, I'd rather you not. Click.
Oh, really? Oh, that's great.
No one ever heard it except for the Downtown Rotary Club.
Well, speaking of movies, tell us about your acting debut in Pass the Ammo.
Yeah, you don't want to know about that.
Huh?
People said I had the best line in the movie. Unfortunately, it's a line that would get me kicked out of the Methodist church. I mean, if I was in the Methodist church.
Yeah.
Episcopalians, it's okay.
Uh-huh.
But it was but now I will say this. I did my own stunts, and I did throw a guy over my shoulder and beat up a guy. And I played a tough guy. I wore camo and was just a redneck tough guy, and a vigilante is actually how I was, what I portrayed. And I got my SAG card. In order to get your Screen Actors Guild card, you have to have 6 lines in a something movie, blah, blah, blah. Back in the 80s, that's what the rule was. And I had my 6 lines, so I got my SAG card, Screen Actors Guild, right here. And the first year when it went on cable, I got $2,200.
Oh.
And the next year I got $800. And I got, the last year was 1994, I got $1.20. But I couldn't help but think about somebody like Robert Redford or Tom Hanks.
Yeah.
All these movies they've made.
That's some
If you
serious money.
if you extrapolate that, they don't have to do anything for the rest of their life. Their residuals are still coming in.
That's right. Well,
Wow.
that is great. And I'm sure you tithed all that money that came in. You tithed?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You're supposed to tithe 10%. I have yet to get close to
Yes,
that. I'm
sir.
sorry. Here's
Yeah.
the way I looked at it. If I give that guy at the street corner holding up a cardboard sign $2, does that count?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It certainly
All right.
does. It
Okay.
certainly does. That's sir. Well, tell us about fundraising and philanthropy. I mean, you have obviously spent a lot of time helping organizations. Why is
Oh yeah.
philanthropy
Well,
so
it's just
important to you?
yeah, it's just it started out being oh, they love me. It was that Sally Field response. You love me. You really love me. You want me to come to your fundraiser. And that gave way to reputation. Oh, we can get Craig, or I did this before, I'll do this again. Yes. And I got to know people. So the yeses became more plentiful. But at the age of 70, after all those years of doing it, now I've given it up pretty much, except for reading to schools, which is my passion. However, I look back on it and realize whether I was just saying yes or thinking I was popular or doing it to spread my name or for marketing, whatever the motivation, in the end, you look back on it and go, you know, that's a life well lived. You know, that is really the spirit of giving is. And now on Channel 11, here comes plug number 2. At 10:31 every night at the end of the 10 o'clock news, I do an Arkansan of the day, which, by the way, Methodists, if you know someone in your church who is like that, who just gives of themselves expecting nothing in return, I'd love to know about it. Wayne's going to have contact information, and would love to talk about them. I'm going to need pictures and what it is they've done. But it's a great way to wind up a newscast where you talk about the coronavirus, the raid on the Capitol, politics, economy. It's just the right way to end a newscast. It's not the hottest thing in TV. It's not the biggest ratings grabber, blah, blah, blah. Because after all, TV is built around conflict. These are the people doing the right thing. Yeah. So anyway, let me know.
Much needed feel good kind of way to end.
Exactly.
Sure. Well, folks can get in contact with me and we can certainly help you maybe come up with.
Well, I can't think of a better group to market that to than the Methodists, because so many of you all I've gotten to know, and that's just the Methodist spirit and the Baptist spirit. And as much fun as I have with the Episcopalians, it's the Episcopal spirit too. It's just, that's the value. We hear a lot about mainstream religions, they're suffering. Well, not really. Not really. As long as we have people giving, we're not suffering. We're thriving.
That's right.
So there.
That's right. Well, and the Methodists are just your second cousin twice removed, and the Episcopals. And we did a little break off a few hundred years ago.
Yeah, but let me put it this way: your covered dishes are more delicious.
Yes. Well, we do.
We serve wine with ours.
Now you're going to start getting a little competition. People you're over there trying to convert now. Don't mess with this now.
Stepped over the line, did I?
Maybe just a little bit. So, but
told you I would.
Well, all right. You mentioned I was going to ask you about your literacy and your passion for reading. Going in with children. Tell us where that has come from.
Well, I always did it. I'd go into schools and not necessarily read. I'd entertain them. So my whole career, I was going to schools, but I don't know if y'all remember what under the Bush administration, they started the benchmark exams, No Child Left Behind. Mm-hmm. And I kind of winced at it because I regarded it as a way to slap schools on the wrist and I thought, there's a way we can make this proactive and make it positive. And so I decided to go and visit schools and try to build the imagination muscle through reading. And that was my program, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, I'm coming back from Sheridan. I'll never forget it. It was Sheridan Elementary. I'm telling them to read. I'm driving back home and I realize, that's great for me to tell them to read, but I don't read. Mm-hmm. I don't read. I'm being totally hypocritical. Mm-hmm. So I just started reading. And in the process of a systematic reading program that began in 2000. It's been 21 years now. I just have, and plus I'm deaf. So I don't watch much TV. It would surprise most people that I probably watch maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours of TV a week. I'm a big reader now, and my joy of books is something I want to share with kids. I don't want them to look at it as a discipline, but rather as a joy, as something you turn to go places you've never been, and to meet people you've never met, and to see how they solve problems, how they come up with solutions to life's dilemmas. And it's just that the last 2.5 years until COVID hit, it was like Craig at the Improv for about the first 30 minutes. Then we got down to reading a book. And I'll share this with you, Wayne. I'm at the Otter Creek Library 2-3 years ago. Kids are coming in from a daycare. They're led by a wonderful woman who has them all seated. I read the story, and actually, before I started reading, the woman of the daycare said, "When you're done, I need to talk to you for a moment." And she said it like, "Uh-oh, what have I done?" But anyway, read the story, everybody, blah, blah. And she motioned me over to one side. She said, "I want you to know that years and years ago, I was a foster child. And I had just been moved from a foster home that I really loved. Not only that, I was being asked to change schools. I had to go to Terry Elementary. And on my first day of school, I was angry. I was mad. I was sullen. The world was at its worst." And she looked at me and she said, "And you were there, and you made me laugh."
Oh.
And she said, "It changed my day. It changed my future." And I went, whoa, boom. And you talk about God blinking. Woo, man. What is that? Is that a God blink, or is that a God sneeze? What is that? That's a God.
I think a God blink.
God blink. Okay.
Yeah.
You don't want a God sneeze. I think that's called a thunderstorm. Anyway.
That's right. That's right. But
anyway,
that's powerful.
It is powerful. There's your pay right there.
Yeah, exactly.
So
but you don't know what kind of seeds you're planting with all those children out there.
Exactly. And that's the beauty of reading to kids. You never know when the light goes on. One of the favorite stories I tell is when I was 17 and had made up my mind, I'm going to go into broadcasting. I'm ushering for the Key Club at Little Rock Central at the Fair and Livestock Show. They made us wear suits and ties at the State Fair and Livestock Show, and we're helping people find their seats. What kind of sense does that make? I'm 17 years old, and people are bringing me their tickets, and I go, "Yes, your ticket is right over there. If you'll just go up 6 rows down 5 seats, you'll be seated there." So here comes an old man shuffling up those ramps. This old man shows me his ticket, and I go, "Yes, sir, you're just almost there. Those steps will lead you to the 10th row if you'll go 6 seats over." He goes, and he nods, and he walks off. About 5 or 6 minutes later, it's 50 years since I've done it, so maybe 5 or 6 minutes later, I notice out of the corner of my eye, he's got his eye on me, and he's walking back down his row, and then he's walking back down the steps, and he keeps looking at me, and I went, "Uh-oh, what have I done?" He gets right up to me, as close as I am to my phone right now, and he says, "Son, you have a wonderful voice. Go do something with it."
Wow.
And he turns and goes back to his seat, not knowing that 55 years later, I would remember him. I don't remember what he looks like, but certainly remember what he said and what he did.
Wow.
Boom.
That's it. I mean, you just never know what we say.
So now I'm the guy shuffling up the ramp.
that is great. That is great. So, well, tell us. All right, how did?
By the way, real quickly.
Yes, sir.
That ushering at Livestock Show, that was in the Mackie Yoakum era.
Was it?
Of my life.
Was it? Well, that was also in the era. Tell us how you went from, how you became Craig O'Neill. That is not.
Well, I wish I had a great story for you. I don't.
Okay.
I was Randy Hankins in Jonesboro, Arkansas, KBTM, which is where I got my start. I'd come from Little Rock, gone to Jonesboro, met my wife Jane. We got married our senior year in college. We were married, and I was still working at Jonesboro Radio in the summer. And the program director named Fred Gooding called me from KARN and said, "We'd like to hire you for nights." And this is AM radio now we're talking about. But I was thrilled. I get to go back to my hometown. Randy Hankins, here I come, blah, blah, blah. Well, when I get there, he goes, "By the way, you'll be Craig O'Neill." He'd gotten jingle singers to sing a name that he had known in Seattle. And they sang Craig O'Neill. So whoever he hired was going to be Craig O'Neill. Besides that, he said, and I quote, "Randy Hankins just sounds too country."
So he named, you didn't come up with that name.
No, he gave me the name, Craig
was-
O'Neill, and he worked with a guy in Seattle named Craig O'Neill, who I'm pretty sure for the last 3 decades has been in therapy. So, and my grandmother was so upset. "What's wrong with the name Hankins?" I got
I
to
was
look at
gonna
my
ask,
late
how did
grandmother
your
and go,
family
"Well,
deal
that's just
with
too
this?"
country." I never thought of that as country. Oh, well.
A lot of men. Well, I actually do have a guest person to kind of help me with the interviews, if that's okay
Uh-oh.
with you. And he really knows you more as Randy, and you already
Uh-huh.
mentioned his name, but he does work for the foundation. And
Wow.
so we're actually really honored that the Reverend Mackie Yoakum is going to ask you a few questions.
I'm sorry, I'm laughing at the word reverend.
So I'm trying to be respectful of both of you.
You may come to regret that in a minute, Hankins.
What happened to your hair?
One of the things that they know around here, because we've talked about you recently, to have you here, Randy and I went to high school together,
Uh-huh.
and we sat together for lunch for 3 years, along with Steve and Mike and Joe and Richard, and we never ate because what we did was laugh at each other. Randy was hilariously funny even back then. He could describe the temperature of water and make it sound funny.
God bless you.
But one of the things that Randy, and I want to share some pictures, and Hagen's going to pull them up here for us in a minute. Here comes one. Randy and I have run into each other all these years. We were pumping gas together here out on Rodney Parham, and this is a picture of us now when we don't have hair. We knew each other back when we both had hair.
Boy, and Mackie, you had a great head of hair.
And one of the things about Hankins is that he gave me credibility with my children. Our 2 older girls were in junior high grade school, and we walked into the old Park Plaza Mall one day, and Randy was doing a live show at noon, and I saw him up on the stage, and I yelled at the top of my voice, "Randy Hankins!" He jumped up real quick and said, "Mackie Yoakum!" My children said, "Oh, Daddy, you know Crazy Craig O'Neill?" And I said, "Well, yeah, we went to high school together." And they automatically began to believe everything that I said from that point. Well, he gave me credibility. And he has run into my children since. This is our oldest daughter. They were doing a Susan B. Conan walk one day. And she called me that night. She said, "Well, I saw your high school buddy, Randy Hankins today, Crazy Craig O'Neill." So kept that picture.
That's cool.
I thought that we might
there
be
it is.
interested to see some of Randy's high school history. He mentioned earlier that he'd been
Mackie, I hate to interrupt you, but that is a painful picture. That's of Fred Strebeck and Tina Turner, who was a high stepper, and me.
That's
and
right.
The reason this is painful is that Fred Strebeck took Tina home one day with me in the back seat with the express purpose that I would ask Tina to the prom because she had not been jilted, but the person she was going to go with could not go. It wasn't a sorrowful thing. But I found out years later, that's why I went home with Fred and Tina that day, and I never asked her. Well, you can tell it's bothered me all this time because she's gorgeous.
This is a picture from our senior, our annual yearbook.
Yeah, it hurts. It really
Well,
hurts, Mackie. I'm sorry you brought
people
that
who see this,
up.
their response is, well, what is Hankins doing to Tina? You know, and there've been various responses to that, but it kind of shows a little bit about Randy's personality way back then. Let's move to the next one.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
In our senior class, we had about 700 seniors, and Randy was elected or selected or voted as most wittiest, the wittiest of
There
the
it
crowd.
is.
And
that's
so this
Becky,
picture
by the
shows
way,
her.
that's Becky Bynes in
That's
the
right.
picture with me, and her father was Marlon Bynes, who was the farm reporter on KAAY.
Correct. Well, this picture, I've asked a lot of people, you know, kind of reflect on that. And one person said, is that a real monkey? Was that a real monkey?
Yep.
Most everybody says, is that the real Randy Hankins?
Yep, that's real. I thought you were going to say, is that a monkey? No, that's Randy Hankins.
This is the Hankins that we knew the most. He was
Yeah.
always yelling and screaming and laughing and making us laugh. I did contact Sam Blair and had a good.
Oh, Lord.
Sam, you remember Sam?
Oh,
Sam
my
taught
God.
English for us at Central High, but
Mm.
the way that we're connected together is he was the Key Club sponsor. You mentioned that a while ago about
Mhm.
ushering. In our senior year, Central was host to the Southern Association of Student Councils. And we had over 500 students.
Wow, where'd you get that picture?
Well, just, okay,
That's
Remember, we're Methodist.
fantastic.
that's right. It's actually out of our high school annual, our
Oh,
senior
that's
annual.
cool. I
But
didn't know that.
had 500 students, 14 states and 10 foreign countries.
Mm.
And as they were preparing for these influx of students, the Key Club and Mr. Blair was assigned transportation responsibility. Remember that? And Mr. Blair, when I was visiting with him about it, said, well, Hankins just up and volunteered to be the chairman of the committee. And we thought, he said, we thought, you know, it was just kind of a joke because he was always, you know, goofing off. But we let him try.
And it was a joke.
Well, but Mr. Blair, I won't tell you exactly what he said in response. He said, Craig or Randy Hankins took the responsibility of moving those 500 high school kids for a week around the city to their homes, back to school, to community meetings,
Mhm.
up to Petit Jean Mountain, and met with the governor up there. And he said it went off without a hitch. There was not a mistake or a problem one.
Well, not quite, because Mike Durham burned up a clutch on a Tate Coppice loaner van from Tate Coppice Volkswagen somewhere around Perryville.
Well,
Other than that, it was okay.
How do you move to the next picture? Here's a picture of Randy in action, taking care of responsibilities. But here's the quote from Mr. Blair. He said, he did it. He did it without a hitch. Can you hear this?
Oh,
He did it without a
Yes.
hitch. Who knew?
Other
He could
than- yeah,
organize and be
I
funny
love
at the
him.
same time.
I love him. And I see him every once in a while now.
Yeah.
And we just always reminisce.
Well,
Although
we owe him a lunch.
we talk books a lot now, Mackie, believe it or
Yeah.
not.
Well, his quote was, who knew it? He could organize and be funny at the same time.
Yay, I'm going to use that in my resume like I need another
That's
job.
right.
Mhm. That's
Well, he's the
cool.
only person who said that, so be careful.
Mackie, thank you. That is beautiful. And I take back my standard Mackie Yoakum joke. Mackie Yoakum, doesn't that sound like a name at Dog Patch?
Yeah, but it doesn't get as many laughs as Crazy Greg O'Neill does.
There you go. Oh, you're wonderful. You are wonderful.
Well, it's good to see you again, buddy.
You too. Even in this
Anything I need
elderly
to know
state.
Craig, anything I need to know about Mackey since he does work here for us?
Well, now that he's sitting there and and I have insulted him, I will tell you that there are people you went to high school with who you love to be around, who when you would see them come down the hall or were in a class with them or any situation, you were immediately comfortable. They made you immediately comfortable. Mackey was one of those. He was blessed with that gift. And I can see him being a successful Methodist minister, leading a congregation. Piece of cake for him.
Thank you, sir.
Good.
That's awesome.
Well, that's good to hear. That's good
Yep.
to hear. Well, I don't know. I've got more questions, but I don't really want to. Well, I do want to ask them, but I want to be fair and see if there are any questions from any of our folks who are out there. Anybody have questions for Craig before I ask a few more? We want to honor his time also and finish this up at 12:30.
What time is it? It's going like crazy.
It is about 12:15. I hope you're
Oh,
supposed to be
wow.
on some newscast or anything.
No, actually, y'all, I'm working only on the 10 o'clock and I go in at about 4:45 and do a couple of things I have to do, come home, have dinner with Jane, then go back at 8:30. So I'm kind of sort of halfway retired, sort of.
Okay.
So when we get COVID under control, God, please let's get under control. I'm going to go back to schools. But right now, I've put all that on hold because it's just gone nuts.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. So what was it like going from working early morning?
Yeah.
Who knows when? Now you're up way past my time.
And my whole body clock is switched now. After 30 years of radio, getting up early, now it's been 21 years of working until 10 o'clock, or actually 10:35, going to sleep around. I always kid everybody. I get off at 10:30, get home by 10:45. I'm asleep by 10:40.
Just stay off the roads, right?
The last 5 minutes, I have no idea how I got there.
Yeah, I bet.
But you're right. It is a switch. You want to hear something cool? I'm just going to tell the Methodists this.
Okay.
Nobody else knows. I'm getting to take a little 45-minute nap every day.
Oh,
that's fantastic. And Iceland recently worked with a 4-day work week, and their research showed no drop off in productivity. Hey, I'm thinking we need to rethink it here.
That's right. All right, tell me about the shoes. I always notice your great shoes.
Jordans, baby.
Okay.
Jays. You'd be
right.
surprised when you walk into an elementary school. That's the first thing they look at is your shoes.
Yeah.
And they notice you've got on the Jays.
Okay.
And I'm just, to this day, even though Michael Jordan didn't look his best in his most recent documentary that went over all those days on ESPN, smoking a cigar, drinking bourbon and bitter.
So that's your brand and you're sticking with it. Huh?
I stick with him, and just the biggest fan. I've got his shoes, I've got his cologne, I got his haircut. So I wish I had his jumping ability. But when he retired, I kind of dropped off the NBA. I've quit following the NBA closely, but now this recent playoff, I'm kind of glancing up at the screen and noticing Milwaukee and Denver, and I think that's kind of cool. But yeah, but that's what. And y'all don't remember in the 60s there was a comedian named Professor Irwin Corey. He would wear a tuxedo, tails, and tennis shoes, and I love that combination. In 1988, they roasted me for the Diabetes Association, and the requirement was you had to wear formal wear and tennis shoes. And to this day, anybody who was at that event still says to me, that's the most comfortable yet elegant I've ever felt.
That's right. Well, I love it. Well, I think you need to reach out to him and tell him what a fan you are and all these shoes you're wearing.
Well, I guess maybe hang around a golf course or a liquor store. It's a terrible thing
we got
to
a
say.
few minutes. Let me see. Any questions? Anybody have
you have any viewers? That's the question.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Thousands of them, thousands.
Wow.
Well, that's a little bit of a fib. I shouldn't be doing that.
Oh, dang it, Wayne. You see, you should
Yeah,
have left me with that.
I know, but
But you're Methodist. You got to tell the truth.
that's right. That's right. If anybody want to have a burning question for Craig O'Neill or Randy Craig.
Yeah. Randy Craig. There you go. Anybody? Anyone? Bueller?
So,
It
Anybody?
looks like
here's one.
Karen has a question. Karen, if you want to just unmute yourself and ask, go right ahead.
Yes, Craig always came up with such good ideas. I remember when he announced War Memorial Razorback games, he was the one that at the kickoff started the woo pig suey as the ball was being kicked off. I just wondered if he had any good ideas for suggestions on how to get people to get vaccinated for COVID.
Man, I wish I did. When I got mine, I thought, this is fantastic. And I thought the world would be the path to the door to get vaccinated. And what hurts is what you realize is that you have lost what we get in television is lost relevance. That the numbers that we give you, especially when they're spiking, and the advice we give you from the medical experts, only half the people are paying attention. They're elsewhere. They're getting it from elsewhere. Plus, the worst case scenario, it's been politicized. So now I've got the shots, but now I'm going to have to talk about these. No, I'm so sick of talking. I'm tired of talking about it. And I wish I had a magic wand that I could wave and everybody would see the light. But unfortunately, we're just all so splintered these days. I've even thought about it like driving a truck across the state and highly publicized, come get your, but if you talk to someone who has not been vaccinated, and David French in Time Magazine had a great point. He said, what's happened is the unvaccinated, that's who they are now. That's a part of their identity. I'm one of the unvaccinated. I can beat it without messing with that. And so the trouble is, if you drove a van across the state of Arkansas, you're still asking people who are unvaccinated to take the initiative to come get vaccinated. They're not going to do it because I'm the unvaccinated. That's who I am. So I'm sorry to preach, but I'm really discouraged.
Yeah. So I'm seeing a few questions in the chat. I'll ask those. So one says, I'm trying to see, you must have had many opportunities. Did you ever consider leaving Arkansas for a larger market?
Well, not seriously. I never really was serious about it. I did. People don't realize that Jerry McInnes, the late Jerry McInnes, who had a fishing show on Channel 7 and then again at Channel 11, had that boat dock out at Maumelle. He became the #1 packager for ESPN back in the day. And as ESPN grew, so did his finances and reputation. When ESPN2 signed on, people don't realize ESPN2, which now shows games too, they're every bit as profitable as the mothership. But when they first signed on back in the 90s, they didn't have any programming. Jerry McInnes provided it. A 2-hour morning block of outdoor programming, fishing, hunting, boating, whatever. And guess who the host was? You're looking at it. So for the first, year and a half of ESPN2's existence, Jerry McInnes of Little Rock and Craig O'Neill and Tommy Sanders got that network up and running. How about that, Methodist?
There you go.
And I never hear from ESPN ever again. Doggone it.
Oh, me. Here's a question or comment. I once tried to explain the rules of arena football to you. Did you ever come to understand what was going on?
know. To this day, I just knew it was loud. It was jamming. People were crashing into the sides of the stadium and the field. It was a lot of fun.
That's right. That's right. Well, tell us, we're going to end with this, with you telling us your plans for you and your wife's 50th anniversary.
You
What
all,
secrets do you got? You got something, you better have something good for her.
no, I actually don't. Jane and I looked at each other about 2 weeks ago and we said, when we got to thinking about planning a party and invite who we're going to invite, and at the age of 70, you all know your energy level gets compromised. I've already talked about the value of a nap. So we just looked at each other and said, let's just have our own private dinner, take some great pictures and put it on Facebook.
That sounds like a nice.
So
romantic-
that's what we've settled on. It'll be the social media celebration.
I love it. I love it. And I understand y'all have, in your 50 years, you have never had a fight.
Never had a fight. They're called lectures.
They're called lectures. Okay.
Sermons.
Sermons. Yes, yes, yes. Well, Randy Craig, thank you so much for.
It's
giving
not
us-
over, is it, Wayne?
Well-
Doggone it.
Well,
Right, real quick.
Yes, sir.
Methodist. I'm a man with many Bibles.
ah,
In my opinion, God has inspired words all over the Barnes and Noble shelves. Let me recommend Jonathan Haidt's Righteous Mind, Why People Pick the Politics and Religions They Do. And you will understand and be able to predict what Fox is going to say about Biden, what MSNBC is going to say about Fox, even to some extent, what Colbert is going to talk about, or somebody on, or Hannity on Fox. It all becomes so apparent and understandable in this marvelous book, and you'll never be upset with politics again. Have a nice day, man.
well, Craig, thank you. And I was going to ask you what you're reading these days, and that's a great way to end.
Well, I've already read that one. What I'm reading right now is about to read is The Sun Also Rises by Hemingway, because I was inspired by that PBS. Plus, I've got a little mission I'm on right now. So
Well,
a reading mission. I like to have missions. So there you go.
yeah. Well, great. You've given us a wonderful hour. We appreciate you and all that you're doing for the state of Arkansas and people.
Read that book, Righteous Mind, y'all.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you.
Thank you,
Thank
Craig.
you.
Thank you all for joining us. We'll see you next month.
Mwah.